it's a black box. Like nobody really knows how these things happen. I think Stanford is a very different place. The kind of classes that Stanford had is something I've never heard of. First thing I would say is people are way more scared of financial modeling than they should be. Yeah.
I might reconsider my decision of doing an MBA after listening to your answer.
We'll persuade you.
Hi everyone, welcome to Conversation with Kushal once again. Today we have Harshita Jain with us, who's a chartered accountant, and she has done her MBA from Stanford. And as of now, she's an associate director at LeapFrog Investments. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of pleasure to interview her and discuss her entire journey right from childhood to how she got into CA. She worked at IIFL, then she got into MBA at Stanford, and now she's working at LeapFrog. So this is going to be a very super fun and insightful podcast. So thank you so much, Harshita, for joining in. It's an absolute honor to host you.
Thank you so much, Kushal, for hosting me. And thank you for doing this. I think it's a big thing for the fraternity. And I'm sure it's really valuable for everyone who's listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Harshita, can you just walk us through your early childhood? How are you as a person? What was your upbringing like? And what are some of the values that you have imbibed from your parents?
Sure, definitely. So I was born and brought up in Mumbai, always lived in a joint family and was very close to my family. Always, we were like 11 people living together with my siblings, cousins, parents, and grandfather. So I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My grandfather basically ran away from his village when he was in his early teens with no money in his pocket, and then started his business after coming to Mumbai, in just the city of dreams, and took it from there. Similarly, my father started his own financial services business, which is a respected company today, and has always been an inspiration to me in everything I've done. As a child, I think I was the eldest child. I have two younger siblings, so was quite academically focused, was pretty much a nerd and like proud of it. I used to like love topping the class, and I think that was my thing. I used to love studying. I used to love getting good grades. Left very little room for extracurriculars, but I did pursue dancing. I was doing Bharatanatyam dancing, so I have a 7-year diploma in that. And grew up, pretty much went to school and college within a 1 kilometer radius from where I lived. So we're pretty much a city girl, pretty much a Mumbai girl till before joining business school. Did my schooling from CNM school in Vileparle, went on to do my BCom from NM College, did chartered accountancy along with BCom, and then did my articleship at Deloitte for 2 years. Moved into IIFL as part of my industrial training in investment banking, worked there for 2 years. Then within investment banking, wanted to get some more, within IIFL, wanted to get some more exposure to the buy side. So moved into private equity within IIFL group itself. Worked there for 1 year. Alongside that, I also volunteered with IIFL CSR for some time. I had started my own initiative, KwK, which was towards promoting education, teaching English to teachers in villages. And after that, I went to Stanford for 2 years, graduated in 2020. Post that, did join LeapFrog Investments, which is a global private equity fund headquartered in London. So I'm based in London right now, currently associate director.
Got it, got it.
Happy
That's a very super inspiring journey. I think it's like a dream profile for anyone who is looking to get some inspiration and who's looking to get a job in private equity, investment banking, that kind of a profile. Were you always a finance geek, or like you always had interest in finance, inclination towards finance, or how did that come to you?
I think I was, and that comes a lot from the family and the background. Like we come from this Marwari Panya family and community.
Yeah.
So my grandfather started his shop, and we used to go to the shop as kids, and everything we learned about it, he was very smart about money. He used to understand money better than anyone else, even though he was only educated up to 4th grade. Carried on to my father's, my father, my uncles, all of them were like very smart financially. My father's company was in stockbroking, so I used to watch the news and track stocks even before I really understood what that meant. Investing was something I thought that I could do well in. I thought that's something that I could intuitively understand. So I had always been into finance. And when I graduated from 10th grade, I think CA was just a natural course of action. I mean, we didn't even talk about anything else. It was just normal that I just went into chartered accountancy.
Yeah, that was my next question, by the way. So, what made you to choose CA curriculum, and why only CA? And like, what are the benefits or learnings that CA curriculum has taught you over the 5 years of journey?
Yeah, so I think it's been incredibly useful in my journey after CA as well. I think the foundation that CA gives us in accounting, auditing, even understanding of law, taxes, financial statements is very, very useful in banking and private equity. And it's surprising how little people understand about double entry system, about things like that, which comes so natural once you go through the whole process, once you understand accounting. You can look at financial statements and tell me about the health of the company, which is something which is absolutely useful in private equity and banking jobs. I think what CA teaches us more than anything else is hard work. Once you get through the pile of books, which is like if stacked together more than your height, then I think you can do anything in the world. It's a curriculum that teaches you that you can literally do anything once you've gone through it, because that's like the most hard work you've ever done in your life. And it teaches you resilience, it teaches you hard work. That is very important to keep you mentally strong. The technical knowledge, the foundations is really, really good. So I think it's always been very, very useful for me in my journey post.
Right. Can you just share some of the incidents that you remember from your CA journey, which were very challenging or which you even recall today? Because like I also know when I was giving my CA final, there were like a lot of incidences where I had done a lot of sacrifices, and I also had to ensure that I'm studying for like consecutive number of hours. There are a lot of fun incidences which happened during articleship. Anything you can recall from your CA journey?
That's a good question. Let me think. So I think one thing that I do recall is that when I completed my IPCC and I was looking for classes, and there's this whole rush of getting into JK Shah versus some, all the top names.
Yeah.
And all my friends had already enrolled 1 year ago, and I was feeling like really worried about this. But I think so. I joined this one class that I don't want to name, but it started at 7 a.m. and they had the lectures until like 9 p.m. at night on the very first day itself.
My God.
And at that time, I kind of broke down. I left the classroom the next day, firstly, and I thought, probably this is not for me. This is just like, if I have to do this every single day for like 3 years, I will not survive this. But then I realized there are better ways of doing this. It's not all, it's like, although CA is a lot of like putting in hours work, it's not just putting in hours. There's a way to optimize it and do it in a way which you can do 4 hours of study, but focus and do it, but at the same time, get most out of it. So I think that kind of shaped my journey also. And then I knew that, CA is going to happen. And then once we know that the last 6 months are going to be key, it's not like you have to devote your entire life to it. So I did my GMAT before I gave my CA attempt. So in November 2015, I decided I wanted to go to business school after CA. And I thought, okay, I have 2 months before I really need to put myself into CA studies. So maybe I should just do my GMAT, see what that happens. And GMAT scores are valid for 5 years. So I did my GMAT before and then went on to do my CA studies and gave my attempt in May.
Okay, so when was GMAT, which month and year, and when was CA?
So November, end of November 2015, I gave my GMAT, and May 2016 was CA.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So walk us through your articleship journey. If you can just highlight like what are some of the important learnings from your articleship experience? What is the importance of doing an articleship, and even your industrial training experience as well? That'll be helpful for us to understand.
Yeah, sure. So I joined my articleship at Deloitte. I audited for a few clients. I think Cello Pens was something I'd audited. I audited Chalet Hotels, which owns JW and Renaissance Hotels in Mumbai. So both very different, very interesting audits. I think a lot of it there was a huge learning curve. At the same time, there was like nights where you were just checking vouchers and like taking and understanding. So I think it gives you the resilience to do grunt work, but at the same time, it gives you the ability to step up and understand the big picture and learn more about the companies, learn more about businesses, talk to the CFOs, talk to the finance people, I think, and really get into it. Until before you do an articleship, it's just papers for you when you're like looking at books and saying, okay, here's an accounting entry, this is what goes into P&L, this is what goes into balance sheet. But when you see it actual real things, and that's how like real companies, big companies in the world function, it makes it more real to you. It makes it all the more tangible to you. You understand that this degree is going to give you a very big power, which is like certifying financial statements of companies, which is something only CAs can do. And it's extremely important for anybody who's looking at the company in any way. All stakeholders need it. So that kind of gives it a very real, tangible thing. Industrial training in IFL was in the investment banking team. So that was very interesting year for IPOs. I was part of the team that did the IPO of ICICI Prudential Life Insurance, which was the first life insurance IPO in Indian markets. It was a milestone IPO in a lot of ways because Indian markets are maturing, that insurance companies are getting listed. There was like a lot to learn about valuing it, lot to learn about pitching it to investors, because domestic investors are seeing insurance company getting listed for the first time, whether how to generate demand, whether or not to make they are comfortable with the valuation, things like that. So it was a very interesting, really good experience as well.
So what would you advise for anyone who is doing their articleship and they are deciding whether to go for industrial training or not? What are the pros and cons of doing an industrial training? How did you decide, like, when you switched to industrial training?
I wanted to do something different than audit. I knew that audit was not something I was going to do for the rest of my life. I wanted to get some exposure into corporate finance. That's how I decided to go into industrial training. I think there are pros and cons, definitely. You don't want the last year to be very, very hectic, such that you cannot focus on studying for your CA, because I think CA is the most important goal in those 3 years. You need to clear your CA, and it makes a huge difference if you clear it in the first attempt itself. So I think that has to be the key focus. If you can get an industrial training at a place which allows you a little bit more flexibility, but at the same time allows you to learn, I think that's an optimal solution to it. But there are places which make you work for 16 hours a day, and then you cannot focus on CA studies at all. That's not something I would advise, not in the first year of your industrial training.
Right. But then having an experience of working in an industry, right? I think according to me, although I have not done an industrial training, but what I regret about my CA journey is that I should have done industrial training, because the exposure that you get in an industry, working with the top management at such a young age, I think that kind of an exposure which will definitely help you in order to get a job or do whatever you want in your life. So that is my viewpoint, and that is something I regret the most for like during my CA journey.
I think what you're saying is fair, but at the same time, like if when people are looking to hire after chartered accountancy, they look at your CA marks, ranks, or that's the first thing they look at, and whether or not you've done industrial training is a secondary piece. I think sure it might open some doors for you, but if it comes at the cost of much lesser performance in CA, then I think it would not give you an edge.
Yeah, correct. Makes sense. I think I second to that. I think academics should be the priority, but in fact, like I've mentioned in my previous videos also, that getting a rank without industrial training is much better than getting a rank, not getting a rank with industrial training. So I think these guys, like at least companies like McKinsey, BCG, Bain, or the top dream companies, wherever you want to go to, they shortlist basis on the rank factor, because they have to get the top 50, top 100 out of the 14,000 CAs who have qualified. So it becomes difficult for them also to shortlist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So let's talk about your post CA journey now. You gave your CA in May 2016, you mentioned. So once your CA was done, how did you think about, let's say, whether you want to get into campus placements, you want to do a job, you want to get into a business? What was your mindset like, and how did you like decide to do what you wanted to do?
So just like the kind of person I've been, I've always been working towards my next goal in life. So before I did my CA was my goal. As soon as I cleared my CA, MBA was my next goal. So I decided that I want to spend 2 years making myself an attractive candidate for an MBA. I'd given my GMAT already, and so I decided that I need to find if to build my career long term. I think investment banking, private equity would give me a good chance of getting a good MBA, would also give me good industry experience. So I continued. I enjoyed my work at IFL. I continued working there in their investment banking team. But after a year, I took the decision to move into buy side. So investment banking is sell side, private equity is buy side. So I moved into the private equity team within the same company. Worked there for a year trying to get the most relevant experience that would push me towards my MBA and a job in private equity post MBA. So I think that was the motivation. I was focused on financial services and consumer industries. I think learned a lot in those 2 years. It was like right out of CA. It was a different kind of work, different kind of job than what audit was. And private equity was a whole another learning curve, and I really enjoyed it. I think once I did private equity, I knew, this is something I can do for the long term. This is something I can do for the rest of my life. So that gave me a look into the industry.
So what are some of the skills according to you that are very, very important for anyone who wants to get into a private equity? How should they start? How should they think about it?
So what we do in private equity, like, as you know, analyzing companies, looking at whether they are good investment opportunities, and finally deciding whether to put money into it or not. It is hard work, and that's something that's CAs are no stranger to. So it's not rocket science. It's something that can be learned. But while positioning yourself, you need in private equity firms, you need to understand why you are a good fit and also communicate why you're a good fit for that position. At the same time, you should follow, like, read a lot, read FT, read economists, read economic times, know what's going on in the market, always be on top of the trends. Follow, if you want to be specialized in a particular sector, like, for example, I do financial services for LeapFrog. I should have a lot of knowledge in financial services, even if I've not invested before in private equity and I want to get a job in that industry. I should be able to name like 5 companies in the market. I should be able to tell you their rough valuation multiples, like, these are the banks, these are the NBFCs, these are the insurance companies, and these are the good ones for this reason, these are, not so good ones for these reasons. This is the valuation. So you really need to, and that's something you build on your own, like as and when you keep reading more about these companies, they stick in your memory. You know that this is a premium company, this is not so premium company, and that really gives you an edge in interviews, because they know that you've been following this sector, what's going on, what's the market like.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. And what would be the importance and relevance on skills like, let's say, financial modeling? People have these questions that financial modeling is mandatory, and if yes, like what are some of the good resources to learn those skill sets from? Any views on that?
Yes. First thing I would say is people are way more scared of financial modeling than they should be. It's like I said, it's not rocket science. It's like you sit for 3 days and you can learn it. The best way to learn it is from a person who is in private equity. That's how I had a colleague in Stanford who was in private equity, and I sat with him for 2 days, like several hours, and learned financial modeling, perfect financial modeling that would put me at an edge for private equity. That is possible, and that's easy. I think there are a lot of courses. There's Wall Street Prep. There's Training the Street. These two are like really good industry sources that teach you financial modeling. And I think there's a little bit of practice that is required, because in private equity interviews, they give often firms give you a test where you have to do the model in 1 hour or 1.5 hours, which is the challenging part, because at that point you need to be so acquainted with like the modeling that it should just come intuitively. It should just flow naturally. So that's something you just need to practice. You need to like practice 10 models before sitting at the interview, and you'll be fine. It's not difficult. It's just something new for a chartered accountant.
Right. Makes sense. So let's go to your post IIFL journey now. So you were in the private equity, the buy side role is over now, and then you now decide that you want to take a leap, get into a business school for an MBA and the best entrepreneurship school of the globe, which is Stanford. So were you adamant that you want to get into Stanford itself, or how was that journey for you, right from applying to then, like, doing the letter of recommendations, giving the essays? submitting that. So from when did you decide that you want to get into an MBA? And how was that entire journey from deciding to get into an MBA to finally getting an admit?
Right. So deciding happened long before
Yeah.
CA. And then the next step was choosing schools. I had visited Stanford, Harvard, and Wharton campuses a few years before on a US trip. It's important to understand that each school has its own different energy, its own different vibe, own different culture. Like Harvard is a very different school than Stanford, even though both are like at par globally in terms of how the placements work or how reputed they are. But Stanford is a totally different vibe. Harvard is a totally different vibe. Wharton is totally different. So it also needs some reflection on what is the best fit for you. If you're into innovation, entrepreneurship, that Stanford is the place for you. If you think you want to be a high-powered business leader, strategy, leading a large corporation, that Harvard is for you. Wharton is like core finance. So if you want to be a banker, Wharton is the place for you. Similarly, INSEAD is a consultant school. So every school has a very specific strength, which is easy to find out in research. And I think it's important for everyone to realize that before they apply, because then they can tailor their application to the school's requirements in the best possible way. So I think that's step one. Then after that, I think I spent a lot of time on the essays. So Stanford has a very open-ended essay, which says what matters to you most and why. And you have to write 750 words on that. And that identifying the one thing that matters the most to you and why should tie up everything in your life that has been so far. So, that needs to be the guiding principle, the guiding point in your life. And you need to write that essay that shares some of your most deepest personal incidences that shaped your life, that made you decide what you want to do, that has made you the person you are, and then identify why that is something that matters to you most and why Stanford should take you in because of that quality. So that essay needs a lot of iterations. It needs a lot of thinking through, you write it, you tear up, you throw it, you're like, this makes no sense. This is not me. This is something else. So I think a lot of hard work there. The other thing I think I did was speak to a lot of people, alumni, not just from Stanford, but from all top business schools, a lot of people who have gone through the journey, current students, applicants. And it's very important to do this because they've been through the journey. They can understand. I would tell them, this is what I'm thinking about my essay. What do you think? This is my profile. What do you think? What are the gaps? Try and reach out to people, try and reach out to like your mentors and get that going. So I think that's another very important thing. In terms of letters of recommendation, I think they need 2 letters of recommendation. One, and the ideal combination is one should be from the company you work for, and one should be from an external person. So supposing you've done an audit and you had a very positive client interaction, if you can get the client to write a letter of recommendation, that's worth a lot. If you can get like your articleship firm to write a recommendation letter or your post CA firm to write a recommendation letter, that's worth a lot. And it should, I think before they give you the letter of recommendation, you should talk to your employer about what it is that you want them to bring out more. What are your qualities that you feel they should highlight? What are they thinking about how they're going to write it? So it's not something, so every step in the MBA process needs a lot of work. So nothing should be just like, done. Like I asked for a recommendation letter and that's like a tick box. Everything you need to really think about and craft it so that it's specific to the school, it's specific to you, it's specific to the application. I think that really helps.
Got it. So I think I have like multiple questions after listening to this answer. Maybe I'll break it down one by one. The first one is if you
Sure.
can help us understand what if let's say like what did you write in that essay, like what matters to you and why? Or maybe some of your friends, what are like some of the examples so people can also understand generally what kind of material is expected.
Sure. I wrote about building and maintaining relationships. That's the one thing that matters to me most, and why. I spoke about my family relationships, my relationships with my siblings. I spoke about my work at KwK, where I managed to build relationships from people with different, language backgrounds, different social backgrounds, and those relationships are really special to me because each one teaches you something different. I also tied it up to my professional relationships, my interactions with my clients, with the companies I work for, and how it's so important for me to maintain those or to keep those in mind as I grow. I think it resonated with Stanford because it is at the end of the day a small school. It's a 400 student class, and they really want students to be like a tight community together. So probably that was something that really resonated with the school. I don't think this essay would have got me into Harvard. I don't think it's like it's a similar vibe. I think there's something else expected from students. I think my classmates had written things like being true to yourself is something that matters to them. That's like a guiding principle through their lives. There's like a variety of different essays around that.
Got it. Yeah, this is helpful. And how long would these essays be in terms of word limit?
I think 750 words is the limit.
Okay, got it.
This essay.
Yeah.
So there are two essays. One is what matters to you most, and one is why Stanford. So that in that you just need to talk about why did you pick the business school.
Got it. Makes sense. And the second question here was that, like, for example, a lot of people who are working in multinational companies, when they decide they want to get into an MBA, how should the journey be for them in the sense that when should they tell their bosses or employers that, okay, they are thinking for an MBA? Because if you are getting a LOR, right, you need to tell them that you have to go for an MBA, and you need to tell them if you're not coming back, you are leaving the organization. So how do you decide at what point of time you should convey them, like how to make that decision?
Sure. So it really depends on the specific circumstances of each company. But I think the person who's giving you a LOR should not necessarily need to be the most senior person in the organization, but someone you have worked with closely and someone who you can trust, that they know you well enough and they like wish the best for you. So if you tell that person that you're going for an MBA and like ask them to keep it confidential, I think you can still secure your letter of recommendation without it being something known. I think most people don't tell their companies until at least they receive the acceptance letter from the schools. But also, I think many companies know candidates are working towards an MBA, so they have this 2-year program after which candidates go for an MBA, so they are pretty open to it or okay with it. So that's kind of the thing.
So in that case, do these companies sponsor the MBA for their for their employees who are going, and then ask them to come back and work? Is it?
Many companies do. I think many private equity companies in India do it. If you're sure you want to return to the same company, then you can go ahead, tell them, get a sponsorship, and do it that way.
Got it. So you gave your GMAT in November 2015. Did you give it another time, or that was the only attempt you had given?
That was the only attempt I had given. That was just
okay, got it. And what was your GMAT score, if I may ask?
So I got a 760 in my GMAT.
Wow, that's like stupendous. I think that's amazing. So maybe you can just talk about your preparation journey for GMAT for all the people who are preparing for an MBA, and they also dream to get into Stanford. How did you prepare, and what was the process like for you in terms of academics?
Yeah, sure. So again, so GMAT, there are two parts, math and verbal. I think Indians are naturally good at math. Anybody and the math is easy in GMAT compared to CAT. So I think math is something everybody is able to crack to a reasonable extent. I think the mistake people make is not focus enough on English because the English in GMAT is tough. It's not just, grammar, it's critical reasoning, it's a lot of comprehension. And a small improvement in the English score can actually improve your percentile by a lot more than a small improvement in a math score, because globally, the percentile of English scores is low. So if you, I spent 80% of my time prepping my English, and math was something I just gave tests and tried to practice it that way. that kind of works because every point increase in English saw a big point increase in my total GMAT score versus a small increase in math didn't really impact the GMAT score that much. So don't try to perfect math to that. So both are like 50 out of 51. That's like math is graded out of 51, English is graded out of 51. And it's a progressive exam. So every time you give an answer, if it's correct, the next question is tougher than that. So what happens is in math, like people are stuck at 49 or 50 and then they spend all their time trying to get to that 51 because when you're so close to the top score in math, you just want to spend a lot of time and get that 51. But getting 51 in math is equivalent to getting a 44 in English. So even if you can get something which is 44 or 45 in English, which itself is a tough thing in GMAT, your score improves a lot. So I think my top recommendation is just that focus a lot more on verbal, lesser on math and GMAT, because at least for Indian educational backgrounds, math comes easy. English comes a little bit tougher for GMAT specifically.
Right.
I didn't take any classes, so I won't be able to give recommendations on that. But I think in terms of books, there's GMAT. The official GMAT book is really good. Manhattan Prep was another book which was really good. And take regular tests. So I used to take a test every weekend to see how I'm progressing. And not just that, after you take a test, they give you detailed feedback on what answers are wrong. If you're taking it through the official source, I think there are 6 free tests when you get the book. And they give you detailed feedback on what is the right answer and how you derive it. So you need to spend a lot of time getting to understand that, after which your test score keeps improving.
Right.
And it's a very good predictor of your final score. So you don't need to go and just give a GMAT attempt, even if your score is much below what you're expecting. That's what it's going to be. So it's you will know when you're ready, because as soon as you hit the score, the target score in test, you can go and give the GMAT. It'll be very similar.
Got it. Makes sense. And had you also thought of giving CAT examination as well, just for testing, if you're doing well there as well?
I didn't give any practice tests, but because I really wanted to get a global exposure, global experience at that stage in my life, I thought I have spent all my life in India, and if I want to at any time move out of India, I think that option will be open if I have some educational background outside of India. So I think my top choice was getting a global MBA.
Got it. And is there any interview process that also happens when these schools admit you? Like for Stanford, were you given an interview?
Yes. So
Okay.
after they after they select you after the first round of applications, there is an interview. The interview is usually by local alumni in Mumbai. So mine was by Lavanya Ashok, who works at Goldman Sachs PE, also Stanford alumni. So you do an interview with the alumni, and then you get a final acceptance or rejection.
Got it. And if you can help us understand what kind of questions are asked in these kind of interviews and how do you tackle them, that'll be helpful.
Yeah. So it's very behavioral. At least mine was. I've heard there's a huge variation depending on the alumni's personal preference. But it was a lot more to understand the fit with the business school, whether what just give more personal stories, what drives me, what matters to me, what is my goal after business school, what do I hope to contribute to Stanford in the 2 years that I am at business school. They don't test technicals that much. They believe you when you give the resume. So there's not an interview that's giving you a case study or giving you some difficult math questions. It's mostly talking to you, getting to know you, understanding what has driven you to this. Why did you choose Stanford, and whether you'll be a good candidate to contribute to the community.
Right. And how long would these interviews be, on an average?
1 hour. It's
Okay.
usually 1 hour. Even my other classmates at Stanford had this. Some of them do it over a walk, some of them do it over a coffee. It's more like they try to make you comfortable so that you're really genuine, and they just want to know you as a person so that they know whether you are a good fit for the school.
Got it. Got it. Makes sense. And in terms of work experience, what I've noticed is that these B schools, the Ivy League and the foreign B schools, at least they require an average work experience of 4 years at least. And that was also one of the reasons, by the way, I had started working at a multinational company. But although I dropped my plans of doing an MBA, but what are your thoughts on this? Like, what is the average work experience which is required? And is your work experience of articleship in Deloitte, that counted as part of work experience?
Yeah, so in by itself, it will not be. You cannot say I have 3 years of work experience when all 3 years are your articleship. Um, but after that, if you have 2-3 years, what you can position your story is that you have a total of 5 years of work experience with 3 years pre-graduation and 2 years post-graduation. So that kind of can build into your story. They give it value. They don't give it as much value as like having post-graduation work experience completely, like 3 years post-graduation. But it does get valued.
Got it. And these B schools, right? Like when they admit, so any idea in terms of what is the weightage given to, let's say, GMAT, then weightage given to these interviews, weightage given to essays, work experience. So like, which is the most highly valued, and like, which is the one which people should focus on the most, and then in terms of priority?
So it's a black box. Like nobody really knows how these things happen. But from what I understand, that GMAT is a filter. So first thing they will do is like do a quick skim of all the profiles, and the GMAT which is below their like threshold, they will put it in the reject pile unless there is like a very extraordinary profile, like someone who has fought like 3 wars or is a Olympian. So in that case, they might accept a smaller GMAT, but unless you have that in your profile, I think GMAT is a filter. So you need to work hard and get the threshold GMAT score to be even considered in terms of the normal admission process. So I think that's number one. Number two, they really give a lot of weightage to the essay. They try to like really understand who the person is. They want diversity. They want to know that every candidate is like curated and put in the class for a specific reason, because they're bringing something different to the class. So so they try and understand your profile in that basis. Work experience, of course, helps. A degree of work experience from a global multinational company is, of course, very valuable, because they know that it really validates that you're a good candidate. You survived that interview process, you survived that work. So probably you have something which you can contribute to the school.
Got it. Got it. Makes sense. This is helpful. Let's talk about your Stanford journey now. So which year you went into Stanford, and then we'll take the further questions.
So I went in 2018, started in
Okay.
2018.
Okay, and this is like usually these schools start from August or September, right?
Yes, so August, end of August.
All right, got it. So August 2018, let's start from here now. So how was the journey like of moving to the States completely for 2 years? And like what were some of the challenges and difficulties you faced after moving outside India? Because usually it happens, right? Like we are so used to staying here and we're so used to being in this comfort zone. What kind of challenges
Yeah.
you faced after getting into the US?
It was all very new for sure. I'd spent all my life living at home, so it was definitely something totally different, totally new. I think the school makes it very easy to get into the flow. So before the term even started, we had this class trip to Lake Tahoe, which is very close to Stanford, but it's like a up the mountain. It's a beautiful lake with like a lot of things to do. So they put you in like houses with your classmates, and this is before you've met anybody, before like the trip has started. So they give you like small gatherings to like get to know your classmates, get comfortable with them. There's a lot of support provided. You have these people who are like managing the house, managing the school, so you can anytime reach out to them if you need anything. Especially for international students, there's a separate community for international students. There are separate people managing it, so your visa, bank account, SIM card, everything like needs to get so there's like a whole checklist that you need to follow. But once school starts, you are too busy to miss home, or like too busy to like really feel out of place. It's like there's so much going on. There's like classes, there's extracurricular activities, there's like events, trips, there's a 24/7 thing, and you enjoy every moment of it, but it's really hard work. So but it's easier because there are so many friends. There are a lot of Indians also, so you form the community, you form close bonds, and you get used to it.
Right. And In terms of curriculum and academics, right? How do you think Stanford is very much different from other B schools of the US as well as Indian B schools as well? What did you like the most, and what was the best experience in those 2 years?
I think Stanford is a very different place. The kind of classes that Stanford had is something I've never heard of. I'm sure other B schools offer a version of it also. I don't think it's part of the education system in India. So, for example, we had classes on design thinking. We had classes on a startup garage, which basically you form a team of 3 people, come with idea, come with a prototype. They give you like, insights. They get VCs from Sandal Road to come and comment on your startups. Get a lot of feedback. You get through the whole process of customer research, how to launch your product, how to start your product. Successful businesses have come out of Startup Garage, which are like valued more than 5 billion today. And that's Deliveroo, which is like really important, a really big app right now. Nova Credit, which is like huge companies have all come out of Startup Garage. So that's something which gives you a springboard if you're trying to start your entrepreneurial journey right from business school. There was a class called Interpersonal Dynamics, which was nicknamed Touchy Feely by Stanford students. And it's a very unique class because you sit with 12 students in a room and without any agenda for like hours at a stretch to get feedback on your communication, to understand how you come across to people. It's like a safe space where it's probably the only time in your life where people will tell you exactly, when you say this is how people perceive you. When you talk to me like this is what I think about it. Different things like how are your leadership skills? What can you do? So then you try on a different leadership skills. So for example, if if my leadership style is generally softer spoken, then on one day I will try on like a loud spoken powerful leadership style and see how people perceive me. Does that feel natural to me? So it's just like very nuanced development of soft skills, nuanced development of leadership, communication skills, vulnerability, ability to talk to people, to communicate to people, also to really understand how your communication is affecting people. That's something which was in Stanford. There's a class on happiness, I think, I forget the name, but it started with an assignment that said write your obituary. Like supposing when you're dead, what do you like write? What was your life about? And then think about whether what you're doing today is actually building towards that. And surprisingly, it's not, because like you don't. What do you want? You don't want obituary to say, oh, worked hard for 12 hours a day. And so like, and then you need to craft your life to make sure that you are building towards what you want to be, like at the end of like 50 years, 80 years. So things like that were like very new, very different, very fun, engaging.
Right. Oh, this sounds very exciting, like especially that interpersonal dynamics class. I wanted to
Yeah.
understand, like, if it's a no agenda, I mean, what do people end up discussing? I mean, for how many hours would they be sitting with each other, the group of 12?
So it's it's once a week for 6 hours. So 3 hours you get a
Okay.
break, and then 3 hours.
Hmm.
It's they give you pre-reads, so they give you readings about like their case studies about some conversation, some business event, and then you can talk about how you would deal with it. You can talk. So
Hmm.
the no agenda thing is awkward for a few classes, but then it becomes normal and natural. Like people start a topic and then everybody contributes, and it becomes like really deep sharing
And
stuff.
then, do you also like, are you asked to give feedback to each other as well, like after that is done, or how does it happen?
Yeah, like you give feedback to each other after that session. Like you tell people what how their contribution made you feel, how
Hmm.
whether yeah, whether the way someone presents, what does it come across, and so
Hmm.
many people are surprised to find when they present, it sometimes comes across as arrogant when they don't mean it to be. Sometimes it comes across as like pushy when they actually are just trying to be persuasive. And that's
Hmm.
something that people don't really tell you in a professional life, but it's so important to know so that you can understand how your behavior is affecting people.
Hmm. Got it. And what would be the average people who are from outside US, or like how is the diversity? How many students are there, and out of which, what would be the demographics in the sense that how many people from how many countries and all?
So 400 people in total. I think 40% were US.
Okay.
And then there was a big China group, there's a big India group, and then dispersed across. So it's very diverse, but it definitely has a higher weightage on US.
Got it. And out of these 400 people, any idea in terms of how many would get into job, how many would get into entrepreneurship, or everyone, like since it's an entrepreneurial school, like is everyone inclined to like get into entrepreneurship right away, or they also get into jobs and all?
I think 30% of the class start their own businesses out of
Okay.
business school, and the rest start with jobs. But many of them move into entrepreneurship
Hmm.
later in their career.
Got it. So what is something that Stanford has taught you about entrepreneurship, since it is an entrepreneurship school itself? What is something that you did not know about entrepreneurship before getting into Stanford? I think it's a little tough question or very subjective question, but what do you think Stanford taught you about entrepreneurship?
Um, so I think Stanford taught me the one concept, which is fail quickly.
Hmm.
I think that's something which I did not fully appreciate about entrepreneurship. But if you look at the journeys of most companies, most startups, the number of times they pivot in their early years is surprising. It would be a rare thing if the first product actually is the product the company is still doing after 5 years and is successful at it. Every company needs to innovate, change their product, see the product, test it in the market. If it's not working, change it and do something else, or like pivot and change the product according to the customers. So I think that whole mentality that you've spent 6 months, built a product, now whatever happens you must push it down the customer's throat, it doesn't work. It's like you need to test a product. If the customer doesn't want it, they don't want it, they want some other feature to it, so you need to like go back to the drawing board, build that feature, and then get it back into the market. So I think that Silicon Valley mentality of fail quickly, fail fast is
Hmm.
important.
Right. And I think that is somewhat missing in India, according to me. I don't know. I mean, if you second that, but at least I feel there's a lot of fear of failure in founders, especially in India. Most people take like they don't take plunge into entrepreneurship because of fear of failure, thinking that what if something goes wrong, what would the reputation be like? I'll have to go back to a job, etc. That is something which is not taught in the Indian B schools, according to me. Of course, like this is my opinion, but that's something which I think.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. And it also comes with the general bent of the society. Like even as children, like failure is this big, thing that should never happen to you. Like if
Yeah.
you fail, it's like the end of the world. Um, it's an aspirational society. People want their kids to do really well in school, really well in college, and then after that, like get something. Failure is just a word people don't want to hear. Um, but it's actually better to fail quickly so that you have not spent a lot of resources, but you've gotten the learnings, and then
Hmm.
then you do the next thing, it will be better, it will be like
Right.
more suitable. So it's a very Silicon Valley thing, but I think it's really good for innovation, really good for
Right.
startups.
I think one of the factors is also about the upbringing, right? I mean, at least for me, right? It's like a very conservative kind of a thinking where we are brought up. So, for example, if let's say I am holding a glass of water and it's a glass, like I'm holding a glass of water and like I'll be told by my parents that अच्छे से पकड़ना नहीं तो वो गिर जाएगा. Like these kind of things, right? Like this is something which again has a negative connotation, and this is something which has like a conservative mindset that like you should just be very cautious, you should be very careful, don't take risks in life, whatever you are doing
Yeah,
एकदम ध्यान से कर ऐसे कर वगैरह. So I think
yeah,
that is again one of the reasons I feel that aggressive mindset or maybe that kind of entrepreneurial mindset is lacking in the Indian economy according to me.
yeah.
So I
No,
don't know if
I
that makes
totally
sense
agree.
or no, but that is something
No,
which
no,
I realize.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us more about your now, like we've discussed about your Stanford experience as well, but we also want to know about how does a typical week look like for a person who's doing an MBA from Stanford? Is it very hectic? Like, how are the classes divided? What do you guys do on weekends? That'll be helpful for everyone.
Yeah, sure. So it Stanford experience number one is like what do you want to make of it? There are people who come with the goal of becoming the like top five in class, and that's something which will be a totally different experience from people who come in with a goal of like trying out as many different classes as possible. So you're allowed to take classes across the school. So you can take a law class if you want, you can take a design thinking class, some math class, a computer science, data science, coding, whatever you want. There's one thing in Stanford which is like unique, is the grade non-disclosure policy. So students have made a pact that Stanford students never disclose their grades to employers. So it's just like nobody really cares about what grades you're getting, and it's like no Stanford student will ever disclose their grades to an employer. So that's something which really shifts the focus away. So like nobody knows who is scoring top grades versus bottom grades. That said, studies are really interesting. Case studies are really interesting. It's like a very new concept. So classes run in a way which is very different to India. It's totally class participation. And because the class is so accomplished and coming from so many diverse perspectives, the whole discussion is led by students. So people have to read the cases before classes. And in the classes, you have to contribute from your experiences, from, there's a set of questions and you discuss it. Someone agrees, someone disagrees, and it's a very rich discussion overall that really drives the case forward and helps you learn a lot from other classmates more than the professor, teaching it or lecturing on that basis. There's a lot of clubs. There was clubs for every contingent. We had a business in India club in which we used to organize events for Indians to come together to talk about things which are happening in India, innovations that are happening in India. What can we do to contribute? We would call experts to talk to, or industry role models to come and talk to us. We have global experiences at Stanford, in which we do kind of trips, we do select different countries we want to go in. So I went to Israel as part of that trip, which was a very unique experience. We brought a group of Stanford students to India to show them our country, and that was another really interesting experience. I think in terms of social, there's a huge social scene going on. There are parties, there are dinner clubs. Every Thursday there's a big party in which people dress up as in onesies, animal onesies, or any kind of really wacky dressy costumes. Once a year we go to Vegas to do this whole 2-day party thing in which people dress up on planes. There's a music on the entire plane. Lot of really memorable experiences overall, lot of a very good mix of things. There's always so much to do that you have to pick, but everything is as attractive as the other thing. So it's very hectic, very busy, but in a good way, busy.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this sounds very interesting. All the dinner clubs and all of that. I think
Yeah.
I might reconsider my decision of doing an MBA after listening to your answer.
Yeah, we'll persuade you.
No, I mean, yeah, this is pretty interesting. So, for example, now you're part of all these clubs, and of course, extracurricular activities is something which is also very important. Once your placements start, right? I'm sure, since 70% of the batch is placed in some or the other company. So, how does that
Yeah.
happen? Does that happen on campus? You have to apply somewhere? How is the placement procedure at Stanford, and when does it start usually?
It's different for different industries. So you need to get an internship between the 2 years.
Okay.
So for that, people start recruiting after the first quarter itself. So which is September to December is the first quarter, and then from Jan onwards you can start recruiting, start case prepping. There's a lot of resources available on campus. There's a lot of case prep sources, books, material available. There are people available who you can reach out. There's alumni directory, so you just reach out to people who are in the field that you are and try and do that. Actual full-time job placements start in the second year. Second year is generally lighter on classes because I think many people try and take the more credits in the first year so they can keep the second year light and still
What
graduate.
are credits? What are credits here?
So I think we need a minimum of some number of credits to graduate from Stanford. The first quarter is compulsory classes, which is, you get assigned a class and then you have to take some classes, and each class is a certain number of credits, 4 or 3, or, depending on the length of the class, the amount of work required. So 4 or 5 classes. In the second semester, you can pick classes onward. So there's a lot of optionality. You can design your course how you want to. So you can pick your classes and you can pick anything. You need a minimum number of credits, but which is basically 2 classes. If you take more than that, you're fine. you can even take 5 classes. In that case, like your second semester is very hectic, but that means that later you don't need so many credits. So your second year is completely free. So you can take very little classes or like easier classes and focus on your recruiting. So people try and do it that way, take more classes in the first year
Got it.
and less.
Got it. And where did you do your internship? Like, did you also apply?
I did it at General Atlantic in New York, also private equity.
Okay, got it. And then like in your second year, so once the internship is done, this happens between the first and second year is what I assume. So
Yeah,
it would
that's
be if
right.
let's say you start getting into if you started your curriculum in September 2018, you'll do an
Yeah.
internship in what May 2019 is what I assume.
Yeah, June to August is
Okay.
generally the time. So
Okay,
you are 3
June to
months.
August. And then like
Yeah.
after August 2019, once your internship is done, your second year starts. And
Yeah.
when do these interviews of the final job happen then?
So many people already after the internship, many consulting people after the internship itself receive the full-time offer. So
Okay.
they are said. Private equity is different. Many times the people who, there are firms who are not taking interns, but only looking for full-time. So they start their process like later. Investment banking also starts later. So it would be like December onwards that, you need to start prepping before, but January onwards, the interviews for banking and private equity start.
Got it.
And the process.
Got it. And is there like any examination of like examination in terms of when do you give that final exam? And is there any specific learning or preparation required for that, or it's more like a very practical open book case kind of an examination? How does that happen?
Some subjects have an open book
Okay.
examination. Some subjects have an online like exam, so you can like
Got
do
it.
it from home. I remember our accounting exam. We had 72 hours from the beginning of the exam till the end, and it was a very extensive. So you basically do need 72 hours to complete that exam. So it was a very
Okay.
extensive, long exam, but it was completely open book, open source to look at whatever you want, Google whatever you want. But but still it's a challenging exam. Like you need to really understand the company itself and do it that way. And so every quarter it's a quarter system. Every quarter has its own exams. All of them have equal weightage. There's no final exam as such that has more weightage than the others. So at the end of every quarter, whatever classes you've taken in that quarter would have their exams.
Got it. I think you were so used to giving exams right from your CA days, GMAT days. I'm sure it would have been very easier for you to top even in the
Yeah.
Stanford class.
Yeah,
Great.
no, definitely not. But I think the classes I took were very different, very challenging. I took a ballet class for 1 quarter, so I didn't want to top Stanford for a change. So I wanted to like really do something different with my experience. And also, it was challenging because a lot, I think 30% of your grade is class participation, and you don't really realize it until like you need to talk in classes. Every time you're talking, someone is grading you, and the quality of your comments needs to be really high bar. So there's a huge amount of weightage put on that. 30 to 40% of your grade comes from how you participate in classes. So there's a teacher's assistant who sits in class and keeps noting down who has contributed what. So that's also like that reason.
Got it. Oh, very interesting. So this non-disclosure system which you mentioned, so this is not given to the employers, but within the classes, is it announced like everyone gets to know who is like in the top 1%, top 5%, or even people don't get to know that?
So top 5 get a special award, so people get to know them, but otherwise people don't know the grades of other classmates. It's not announced.
Okay, got it, got it. Perfect. So now, like you decided, so Stanford is done, so 2 years MBA is done. So how did you decide not to get back to India? What was your thought process? Like a lot of people think that they should get back to India, or maybe they should stay in the US and just do a job so that the return on investment is justified because the fees are also very high. Like I think around rupees 2 crores or maybe 1.5 crores, right?
Yeah.
So how do you justify that, and how did you decide what to do after Stanford then?
Yeah. So I graduated in 2020 in the middle of COVID, in the middle of first quarter of COVID, which had made it very, very difficult to get jobs in the US. Donald Trump had just come up with his thing where he didn't want to give visas to international people anymore. So a lot of people who came on campus and were recruiting had this thing that only US passport holders could apply to that job. So that really restricted the universe of it. In any case, I wanted to be connected to India. I had built a lot of expertise in India. I was like really interested in financial services in India. LeapFrog opportunity came along. So LeapFrog is like a private equity fund which invests in the growth stage. We have like under 2 billion under management, and it invests in emerging markets, and India is a very key market for LeapFrog. About 1/3 of the capital is invested in India. At the same time, it has a social impact mandate. So it's a profit with purpose fund, putting equal weightage on, vigorous private equity analysis, but at the same time, whether the companies it invests in are causing social good, are like including, causing financial inclusion, delivering essential services to customers. That really resonated with me. That's something I wanted to do. I wanted to do private equity, but private equity was for good, and that also focused on India was something that seemed like a very perfect opportunity for me at that time. I was flexible with location. I didn't, and they have offices in Singapore and in London, so I was pretty much open to it. I didn't specifically decide that I wanted to be in London, but that turned out to be a plus for sure. So it helps.
Got it. And would you be okay to just share how was your interview experience at LeapFrog, and how did you answer the question? What kind of questions you were asked? Was it like a typical General Atlantic kind of an interview, different from that, or how was it overall?
Similar in many ways. So I think it's a typical private equity process, but the first round is more with the HR or a behavioral interview. Like the order of interviews can be different in different firms, but there's a certain set of interviews that is more personal. They just want to go through your personal motivations. Questions are like strengths, weaknesses, what do you want to work on, why do you want to come to LeapFrog. Those are tell me about yourself, things which are more behavioral questions. After that, I had an interview with the director in the firm, and also around with the associate director. So these are generally your reporting managers in a post MBA setting. So those are more technical. They ask you about what your view is for financial services in India. What are the companies you focus on? Why do you think it's a good company? Why do you think it's a bad company? They might give you a small case study verbally. They might say that, supposing this is a company we are looking at, this is its revenue, this is its growth. What would you look at to tell me whether it's a good company or not? So you ask questions about the company to talk about what you would analyze for you to form a view on whether or not it's a good company. There are some mental math questions sometimes which returns but it's not like very tough math. There's a case study at some point in the interview in which, so the case study I had was I got a choice of 3 listed companies, and I had to prepare a presentation and model on any one of those and whether or not it's a good investment case. So I think I picked SBI cards and got all the information and how I would value it, whether I think it's a good investment, what should be the entry exit valuation, what should be the IRR, and then present a case on what are the thesis, what are the risks. And then we have the partner round in which you speak to the partners. Again, mix of behavioral or technical questions that they ask you about what you follow, what is your view on the markets, why would you be a good fit, so things like that.
Got it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, so in many private equity interviews, there's also a super day round. Mine was completely virtual, so we didn't have that in COVID. But it's like you get called into the office, and then you have a set of 4 or 5 interviews back to back with like different levels of people in the firm.
Got it. Makes sense. So like you were in India when you were giving these interviews because of COVID.
I was in California when I started the process, but yes, the last round was in India because of COVID.
Got it. And at LeapFrog, right? Like now it's been what, 2.5 years you have been at LeapFrog?
Yeah, 2.5 years.
Right. So if you can help us understand in terms of what exactly is the role of a person who joins these kind of companies, and how does a typical day look like in like in a private equity fund? That'll be helpful for people to understand.
Yeah. So a post MBA role generally in private equity funds have three parts of the job, three responsibilities. One is sourcing, one is deal diligence, the second is deal diligence and execution, and the third is portfolio management. Roughly, you spend like 1/3 of your time in this, but it like varies on a day-to-day basis. So if a deal is live, you're doing, the second stage, which is due diligence that for the entire day. On certain other days, you're focusing on portfolio management for the entire day. So just to go through this, it's like sourcing depends on the stage of the fund. So private equity funds range from VCs, which invest in early stage companies, to growth stage, which is what LeapFrog does and is somewhere in the middle, to buyout funds, which are like more mature companies, and funds buy them out. And the sourcing strategy generally differs between these companies. At LeapFrog, the way we approach it is that we pick, I'm focused on financial services. So we often do like a deep dive into a specific sector or subsector, like for example, credit cards or insurance brokers or insurtech distributors. And then we look at the market trends. We look at who are the key players. We try and get meetings with all the key players to understand which company, how they rank amongst each other, and then whether they're looking for a capital raise. If they are, then we should put ourselves in for the as potential like buyers of that company. So that's like the sourcing piece. It's more important in growth stage funds. In buyout funds, it's more banker led. So investment bankers come to you with the deals. In growth and VCs, you need to go out and like really find deals. It's a lot more relationship based. The second stage, which is due diligence and execution. This is basically my favorite part of the job, where you have a company, you like it, you send a term sheet to it. It's like a non-binding term sheet. And then you say that, okay, we are going to invest in it, but here, so there's the project management that comes into the picture. So you have due diligence on financial, commercial, legal, tax. So you like analyze the company deeply. You get on board all these consultants from KPMG, Deloitte, PwC to come and do a financial diligence, tax diligence. And lawyers will do a legal diligence. You will, at this point, you will have an IC memo, which is like a presentation of the company, which you present to the IC, try to convince them that it's a good deal. And if you get approval, you go forward to execution, which is like documentation, is a shareholders agreement. And if everything goes well, you like sign and you get a new company into the portfolio. So that's like basically a exciting part of the role. It's like something new, it's different. It's where you see the impact of your work the most. It's like actual money going into the company, creating impact. So that's always fun part of the job. And
Right.
I think the third part is portfolio management, which is once the company is part of your portfolio, you need to report on it every quarter. You need to analyze the financials. You need to see where you can add value from your learnings from your experiences with other companies, so that it continues to grow and generate returns for you.
Got it. Yeah. Thanks for breaking this down. I've heard that like the number of working hours at private equity are insane. So how is it for you, or how do you maintain work-life balance? Is there a concept of work-life balance, first of all?
There is, like, it really depends.
Okay.
It really all depends on your it's at LeapFrog we have like smaller teams. I work directly with the partner, and I have one junior professional who has joined, so working with me as well. So we are a team of 3. So there are times when it becomes crazy work, when especially if a deal is live, it's like cyclical. So if a deal is live, there's diligence ongoing, then you have to devote a lot of hours to like get it over the line because there are deadlines. But when there's no deal, you can always take time off, and like it really depends on your team. But if your team is more flexible with it, you can always take time off. You can prioritize other things. So it's cyclical is what I would say. There are times of hard work, but there are times of like where you can devote more time to personal stuff.
Got it. And I think when a live deal is going on, that must be a little insane, right?
That is insane. That is because it's usually a competitive process, and
Right.
you need to get it over the line in a certain period of time. So there are like deadlines, and there's a lot of work which needs to be finished within the deadline for you to
Hmm.
be in a position to do the deal.
Hmm.
So those like there, it goes on for like 3-4 weeks at a time, but that time is where you need to devote a lot of hard work to.
Got it. Got it. Makes sense. I think that I wanted to ask these things about the private equity industry and your experience at LeapFrog. But what are your like future plans and what do you want to ultimately do maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line? Of course, like that's a very long term view, but anything specific you have in your mind since you come from an entrepreneurial background?
Um, yeah, I mean, so as of now, I really enjoy my job at LeapFrog. I think I don't have a plan of what I want to do after 5 or 10 years, but I want to continue building on my expertise in financial services,
Mhm.
be recognized as a specialist in financial services, as a leading industry voice in financial services in 10 years. I need to build that kind of uh, knowledge, that kind of expertise, networks, and also just the presence to be able to talk really authoritatively on anything to do with finance or fintech in India and be recognized as an important speaker on that.
Right. So in the Indian startup ecosystem, like especially in the fintech industry, so any thoughts on what kind of business models are working very well? Because lately we've seen that a lot of like valuations of companies have gone down in the last couple of years, last 1 year, even after
Yeah.
funding winter, right? Like there was a lot of conflict in the sense that companies were valued higher, and now a lot of VCs have realized that they have given some insane valuations. So specifically in fintech, maybe after listing of other companies like Paytm, which has also lost a lot of its market capitalization after it got listed. Any views on the valuations thing that is going on in India right now, especially as far as the startup ecosystem is concerned?
Yeah, sure. So I think valuations were at an insane high in the 2021, half of 2022. And there were a lot of things that led to the crash. I think Indian startups had demanded crazy valuations back of just revenue growth. It has been a testing period for these startups, and the ones that come out of it with demonstrating still the ability to have structural profitability are actually filtered out as like the really high quality startups. I think they will continue to attract a premium valuation. Um, on the other side, there have been many stories of like startups struggling to raise money, having to liquidate, going bankrupt. I think for those startups, it will be difficult to raise money. I think there'll be a lot of like acquisitions in the industry where, the profitable startups which are still able to attract money will take over the weaker ones which are not. Valuations have moderated now significantly, but still India is a different planet compared to the rest of the world. It's like there's still a huge mismatch. The valuations have corrected in US and UK, in Europe a lot more than they have in India. On one hand, there are good reasons for that. I think India's economy is looking really bright right now. There's a lot of growth potential. There are like really high quality companies coming about. So I think there might be some more correction before there's a boom again. But fundamentally, I think there's a lot of growth room for all these startups.
Right. What would you give priority, like in terms of profitability versus growth? So, like when you evaluate startups and also, what do you prioritize?
So it the thing is you should not be buying growth, right? So if you're a startup, if you're saying that I'm spending $2 but
Mhm.
growing $1, that makes no sense. That's not
Mhm.
sustainable, right? And I think growth is important, but at the same time, structural profitability is very important. So if
Mhm.
the company is burning money now because it's investing in new lines of business or investing in marketing or investing in fixed costs, that's fine because you have a clear path of profitability that when it reaches a certain scale, the fixed
Mhm.
costs will not grow. Its fixed costs don't grow with revenue growth. So at some point, the company will become profitable in the near future. Um, but if you don't see the economics coming, even at a structural level, even like on a contribution level, if you see there's no way for the company to make money, that is a no-go. So even if it's
Mhm.
growing like 200%, but for every percent growth, it's burning a lot more money.
Right.
That's not a quality asset.
Right. What would be your learning resources in the sense that any specific newsletters you consume, any specific podcasts you watch, what would be those learning resources for you?
I I read the ET every day. I think that's a very good financial resource for what's happening in Indian markets. Economic Times. Financial Times is a very good publication. The Economist is a really high quality publication also. TechCrunch is good for startups and tech company. VC Circle is another good source for like startups and VCs activity.
Right. Any specific podcast?
Nothing other than these, but like FT comes up with its weekly podcast, or Economist has a weekly podcast where it deep dives into one or two of the issues. So I think I listen to those, which are good.
Got it. So since we're towards the end of the podcast, this is like the last question of the episode, and this is a tricky one because I ask this question to every guest of mine. You can take time to answer. So if you were in the shoes of Kushal and if you were interviewing Harshita, what is that one question which you would like to ask her towards the end of the interview?
No, I think that's a tricky one. You have covered it, so I don't. I don't have anything further to add.
Okay, so it means like I think I take it as a compliment that I was a good host because I've covered everything.
Yeah, definitely.
And but yeah, thanks a lot, Harshita. I think this was super insightful, super helpful. Thanks for sharing your entire journey. This is going to be super inspiring, firstly, and secondly, it's going to help a lot of people who are planning to get into these kind of industries or maybe B schools as well. So thanks a lot for doing this. Really appreciate it and wish you all the best for all your future endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. I think it's a great initiative and you're putting in a lot of work to make it a really high quality resource. And congratulations on your book, by the way. I think that's a great initiative.
Thank you. Thank you so much.